Hello, this is Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're here on Val Vista Lakes. It's March 5th. As you can see, it's a rare cloudy day in Phoenix. It's also very windy. And so we're on the Monopoly Project Live. We're going to do a few of our floating book reviews. Of course, we're on the yacht here on Val Vista Lakes. Every successful real estate mogul has a yacht, and this is the Monopoly Project yacht. Unfortunately, it's the Bikini Girls' day off, so you just have me. And I'm also captain and crew. So today we're here to review 4 books, 2 on scripture. The first one is The Resurrection Shock. Did the disciples get it right? You can see the wind blew my camera. Second one is The Drama of Scripture. And then the next 2 are by John T. Reed, one of my favorite real estate authors. The first one is how to write and publish your own book, and the second one is best practices for the intelligent real estate investor. And so we're going to get started with these right now. You can see the wind's really picking up here, so let me go off and adjust the boat, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back with our 4th and last book on the Monopoly Project yacht. Every successful real estate investor has a yacht, and this is the Val Vista, the Monopoly Project yacht on Val Vista Lakes. Unfortunately, like I said earlier, it's the Bikini Girls' day off, so you just have me as captain, crew, and also steersman on this windy day. So the last book we have is Best Practice by John T. Reed, Best Practices for the Intelligent Real Estate Investor. And as I said earlier on the previous one, giving you a little background on John T. Reed. John T. Reed is a real estate investor. He started in the 80s in Texas, went bankrupt, came back, did some other things. He also went into youth sports coaching, and he's written a lot of books on youth sports coaching. He's written lots of books on real estate. He's written a lot of books on general matters, one called Succeeding, which we had reviewed for the Monopoly Project like 6 months ago or maybe a year ago. I've been reading John T. Reed stuff since at least 3 decades, 30 years, and maybe more, even before I started investing in real estate, other than just, personal homes. I read his stuff, and, he was a go-to guru for me. And he still is, and like I mentioned in the Succeeding book or in some other blog posts, Reed has a really informative website, and he has a really informative section on where he rates various real estate gurus, which of course like 90% are very negative ratings, rightfully so, because most of the real estate gurus aren't about buying real estate, but they're about trying to get wannabes to give you money for either books or more accurately seminars, where they charge you like $5,000 for a weekend seminar and sell you all these materials, and it isn't really you don't really learn anything, or they offer to partner with you, which of course is all phony. But he calls them out. He actually goes to the county courthouse and gets records about people who claim they've done all these deals, and most of them haven't. You can see I'm headed right into the sun. I'm going to try and lower it. You can hear, well, I managed to get the sun out of my eyes. I'm sort of blinded now, so I can't see. Let me go on to Reed's book on best practices. This book sort of summarizes all of his books. He has 2 or 3 dozen books on real estate, so in various different aspects of it, and so you can go find books by him on various very narrow things, but this sort of summarizes all the knowledge he's gained in the last 10, 30 or 40 years, 50 years. I think he's in his 70s now. And so, do I recommend the book? Surprisingly enough, I'm going to say no, because it has too much information. Especially if you're a beginner. If you read this book, you might just conclude that, hey, this is a really scary thing. All I'm going to do is lose a bunch of money, and I don't have the brains for this. If you got to be as smart as this guy to succeed, and even then, as he points out, a lot of it or most of it is luck. then I can't do it. So if you're a beginner, this definitely is not the place to start. If you have some experience in real estate investing, I mean real experience, you know, where you've actually bought properties and managed them and operated them and sold them and so on and so forth, to me it's a very interesting book because I can go through and read what he says and say, yeah, I agree with that, or no, I don't agree with that. He has actually, one of the things I want to point out about the book is if you go to the index, he's got reads real estate rules. You can see right there, he's got on the index there, he's got a whole bunch of reads investment rules, and I found those real interesting to go and look through them and see if I agreed with them. Some of them are platitudes, but let me give you two examples, and I don't know which number they are, but I was just looking them up. And one of them says you can't predict the future real estate conditions, and I understand what he's saying. Nothing's predictable. Tomorrow you could be dead. Tomorrow you could meet Jesus, give away all your money, and start serving the poor. And people have done that. So you really can't predict the future. The next real estate rule that he has is you can't predict interest rates. And again, I agree with that in general, but I sort of disagree with, while you can't predict, obviously you can't predict without some, factor of risk that you might be wrong. But I think the prediction for right now that people will continue to move from other areas to Phoenix, helping the real estate market here. By helping, I mean increasing the appreciation, I think is a fairly safe assumption. And of course, that's the underlying assumption of the Monopoly Project and in general, all of our real estate investments in the Phoenix area. We think things are going to keep going up because people are coming here, because relatively other areas, and specifically California, are much less friendly to real estate, much less friendly culturally, much less friendly, politically. And so you have to make some basic assumptions when you're investing, whether it's in real estates or stocks, or whatever investment you make. You have to make some fundamental assumptions. Now, those assumptions could be wrong. They could be obviously wrong. They could be wrong because something changed. I mean, if you were in real estate and you bought a bunch of retail buildings because you thought that you didn't think that Amazon was really going to be as big a threat as it was, and retail would still do real well, and then COVID hit, and of course, it blows up your entire underlying assumption. So you have to make assumptions to invest, and by investing I obviously mean literally money, but I also mean in the path you take in life. I mean who you marry, where you live, what you spend your time doing. You have to make fundamental assumptions and align your activities with those fundamental assumptions. If those fundamental assumptions are wrong, then it will not turn out well. If they were right and then some exogenous factor, using the word exogenous from economic theory, outside factor that you couldn't predict happens, like COVID, then of course your plans are shot also. And of course, as Reed points out in the book, sometimes exogenous factors are good. And I just heard an example. I was listening to a podcast from an investor about who bought a property during the COVID time, and he was going to redo it and then flip and then raise the value of it. Turns out COVID hit, and the place was vacant, but because prices have gone up so much in the last 2 years, he made a huge amount of money. But again, you can't plan that kind of stuff. But you do have to have an underlying set of assumptions on what you want to do with your life and what's the best way to accomplish that. So do I recommend the book? I mean, if you're a beginner, no, because it's way too it's way too much information, and because it's so detailed, it's not actionable. It's not actionable. And so, I mean, if you're interested in real estate and you've actually done it, and you'd like to see what somebody else thinks of it, and just sort of bounce some ideas, I think it's definitely worth reading. It's certainly very entertaining. Reads, like I said, very informative, but he's also a very entertaining writer, so it's fun to read and go through. I guess he's written lots of books, and one of his latest book, and I haven't read it yet, is he's recommending that you put all your money in your primary house. I mean, not all your money, obviously. If you're super rich, like billionaires, you can't have $1 billion house. But he's talking about if you want to make a lot of money in real estate, one of the ways to do it is to put it into your primary residence, because the owner-occupied financing is so inexpensive and so easy to get, and the loans are non-recourse. He spends a lot of time on non-recourse loans here in this book that I talk about, that I just reviewed, but also in this one, that loans are non-recourse, so you're not at risk of losing all your assets. And I understand what he's saying, and in fact I agree with that, and that's why the Monopoly Project is sort of predicated on that thesis, is that you start with owner-occupied financing and you keep doing that as long as it's possible. I mean, eventually, once you get into commercial real estate, it's no longer, by any definition, owner-occupied. But I haven't read the book. My initial thoughts are the problem with having all your wealth in your primary residence is it's not available to you. You have to sell it. You have to sell it to actually to be able to use the money for something else. And also, there's limits on how much you can do. I mean, certainly he still lives in California, or am I thinking of somebody else? Obviously, in California, you can easily buy a principal residence that's $2 million, $5 million, or even $10 million. If you buy a property in Newport Beach, or somewhere like that, San Francisco. But in most states, for most people, $1 million house is a mansion, right? You live in $1 million house, so there's an upper limit on how you can execute that strategy, the limits of that strategy. So I think you got to. I don't know. I'll have to read the book, or at least read if he has like a column or two or an explanation how to get around that. So, in any case, like I said, the fourth book, Best Practices for Intelligent Real Estate. I am going to actually read more and maybe do some excerpts on it, because there is a lot of interesting stuff. And the other interesting thing I should point out is that he has some interesting tables in here, and I'm trying to find them. Oh, here it is on history, inflation rates, history, all sorts of things that are, okay, here's inflation rates. On the previous pages, interest rates that go back 100 years, and events that happened in the United States in the last 40 years that impacted real estate. Here's another one, periodic financial doomsday forecasts. These are really popular books also. There's some authors who specialize in that. Every 5 years they come out with a new doomsday book that of course never happens. He talks about tax avoidance. Like I said, I'm gonna, usually when I finish reading a book, I pass it on or I give it away, because then you just get too many books. But this one I'm gonna keep, because there's a lot of individual things individually that I want to go through and look at again. In any case, this is Jim for the Monopoly Project. That's our set of floating book reviews for February that we finished in February of 2022. You can see what we're reading in our blog posts on the last few days of the month. On the 28th, we generally publish what we're reading, and so that's an upcoming view of what we're going to be reviewing. Hopefully, if we finish it. We've also we don't always finish a book. If it's not the right book for us, we pass it on. So in any case, this is Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're going to head home. You can see it's almost sundown. I'm going to keep talking until I can get the sun in the background so you can see that it's sundown and you can see the waves riding here. I will mention, maybe this is too late and I'll have to excerpt it to put it up front. We are, Jeff and I are doing the Monopoly project. We just bought our latest house in, what was it, January 14th it closed, the condo on Chrisman. And it's actually going real well. Both of the properties we bought together are doing real well from appreciation, and it looks like rents are going to go up. So we're not really in the market for another property because we're sort of pausing. The market's sort of crazy. We're replenishing our capital. But separate from that, Michelle and I have been buying a commercial property in Phoenix. We closed on a deal on December 23rd for a 10,000 square foot building, and there's some exciting news on that we're going to be sharing in the future posts. You can see the sunset coming in behind me. Now you can't see my face, so that probably makes it even better. And we're actually in escrow now to buy a historic property in Phoenix. It's almost 100 years old. So that should close in a month or two, assuming we don't find any showstoppers. But that's also going to be a very interesting investment just for the historical value and the neighborhood. We're really excited about this deal. So in any case, we'll be talking about certainly the first one in the next few weeks. We'll have some new information. The second one, of course, we'll probably wait to close before we say anything definitive. But you'll be seeing those coming up in the future. That's not strictly Monopoly Project, but it's Michelle and Jim and our continuing adventures in real estate acquisition and operation. In any case, this is Jim for the Monopoly Project. Thank you for listening, and we will see you on the next floating book review.